What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. Bear with me if you can't tell, I kind of lost my voice a little bit, just getting over a cold. So nevertheless, I'm very excited to be out here in the garden today with you all today. And we're going to be talking about 5 things that I've learned from making my own compost. Let's go. So the first thing that I've learned about making my own compost is that if you don't flip your compost, it's going to take a long time. Now, we flip our compost about every month or so. We're not like diligent about flipping it, but we do flip it pretty regularly. So we get new air in there, mixes the broken down material with the fresher material, really kind of activates that compost a lot, helps it break down a lot faster. If you don't flip your compost, you're going to be like those people that write in, or you might even be that person that writes in saying, look, my compost is taken 5-6 months and it looks basically the same. What's going on? And that's really it. It is surprising the difference between an actively aerated flipped compost pile and one that is let sit cold, which is fine. It's going to compost, but we're talking basically 2-3 months to completion compared to like 1 to 2 years for completion. Huge difference. So check it out. This is actively aerated. This is like, this is, look at this. Look at this stuff. The amount of worms and goodies and creepy crawlies on this thing is crazy. This is beautiful compost. Now, this compost is getting integrated in with some stuff that is semi-finished. It's not completely done yet. As you can tell, this grayer stuff here is a lot of drier grass clippings and things like that throughout the year. And what we're doing is we're flipping it, we're integrating it, right? That way it's all gonna break down, because the stuff that's fully broken down was on the bottom, and the stuff that's not yet broken down is on the top. We're really kind of getting all that homogeneous, so the whole pile is basically the same consistency. And that is the first thing that I've learned, because I'll tell you, I've made a lot of compost in my life, and it's taken a long time sometimes. All right, the second thing that I've learned from making my own compost is that the addition of compost additives is not required, but is a great idea. These are alfalfa pellets, and alfalfa pellets can help add to the overall composition of your compost, add a lot of nitrogen, but also increase the performance of your compost pile. Now, other compost additives could be things like bone meal, blood meal, for things like calcium, phosphorus, nitrogen, things like that. But you can also add stuff like rock dusts, right? Your trace minerals. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff that you're adding to your compost pile, if you're not adding leaves, that's the big addition here that adds the trace minerals. But if you're just using things like grass clippings, a predominantly grass clipping based compost is going to be void of many trace minerals. And that's because roots from grass do not go down very deep. And so they don't have many minerals at the surface level. A lot of times lawns are manicured and they're given nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, but they're not given those trace minerals, which over time are lost deeper in the soil. And so trees bring them back up. So if you're using leaves, that's great. Fall leaves are a wonderful addition, but if you're not using that, I would suggest adding something like, an azomite, a glacial rock dust, or even like a green sand or something like that. But these alfalfa pellets we add for nitrogen. And what that does is it does some magic, and I'll explain why. Because that ties into the third thing that I've learned about making my own compost, which is that nitrogen is king. Nitrogen is king when making compost. If you don't have enough nitrogen, your compost pile is going to stagnate, it's going to go cold, and it's really going to slow down. If you want a nice, hot, fresh, beautifully activated compost like what we had, that is going to be found with the presence of lots of nitrogen. Now, why am I adding these alfalfa pellets? From point number 2. Alfalfa pellets are rich in nitrogen. They're basically a grass that's grown, and farmers will use it for animal feed. But also, the animal feed just so happens to have an incredible source of nitrogen. And what they do is they actually make a slurry, and they ferment that slurry. So there's no weed seeds in this. There's not a single weed seed that will grow from this alfalfa here. And so what they do is they ferment it down to make the alfalfa more digestible for animals. But then they run it through a pelletizer, and it makes it really easy to apply. Now you can buy alfalfa chunks for things like deer. Some hunters will use alfalfa chunks for deer, but you can also use it for things like horses and stuff. And this is more for like rabbits and goats and whatnot, but it doesn't matter. It's still the same application. They've all been fermented, they've all been chunked into blocks or into pellets, and it is an incredible addition into your compost pile. Now I know you're probably asking, well, Luke, how much do I add of my compost additives? It's totally based on the size of your compost. I can't necessarily tell you exactly how much you should be adding. What I can say is that in my 4-foot by 4-foot compost corral, I will add roughly about 10 to 15 pounds of alfalfa pellets. This is a 50-pound bag. You can get it for dirt cheap. It goes a long way. But I add about 10 to 15 pounds per composting session. So I don't add it all the time. It's just a once and done. And all that does is it gives a ton of nitrogen. The compost will activate, it'll get super hot, it'll steam a bunch, it'll help to balance out the carbon to nitrogen ratio, help it really compost efficiently. And then all of that extra biomass that's in the alfalfa will also add to the overall yield of the compost pile. Only about 10, 15 pounds is all you need. All right, and the fourth thing that I've learned about making my own compost is that moisture is also really critical. I am someone that does not always remember to add water to my compost pile. And what happens is that your compost will go dry. You have to remember that if you're actively composting, if you're actively aerating, right, you're flipping, and you are trying to achieve a really fast, high quality compost that is bacterially dominated, you want to make sure that you add lots of water. And the reason why is bacteria, they're living like you and I are. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to go a couple days without drinking water. And so having adequate moisture in your compost pile is going to ensure that it's going to compost evenly. Now I know you're probably asking this, well, Luke, how often do you add water to your compost? Well, I add water whenever I flip it. I don't typically come in and add a bunch of water, like every week. I'll typically add water about once a month when I flip it. Now, I could be doing that more frequently for sure. It just comes down to a time thing. I just don't have the time. If I had the time and I had just, I needed a ton of compost really quickly, I'd add a lot of water, I'd flip it. But there's a balance between adding not enough water and adding too much water. Ideally, what you want to look for is you want to look for a consistency that's that of about a damp sponge. If I squeeze this, there's nothing coming out of it, right? There's no water that's oozing out. It's not like a sponge that's oversaturated. It's like a sponge that I had, a couple tablespoons of water that I'd spilled on the countertop, and I soaked that up. That's about the consistency that you want the compost to feel like. All right, and the fifth and final thing that I've learned from making my own compost is that in all the years of making compost, I've never had a problem with composting things like squash plants, tomato plants, pepper plants, any type of plant that may carry a disease. Now, for things like powdery mildew, for things like blight, even, potato plants, everyone always asks me, Luke, should I be composting those? Because I'm worried, because I had some powdery mildew, I'm worried that might get into my compost and spread throughout my garden. The answer is that is a concern that is, it's a valid concern, but it's one that you don't have to be concerned about. The reason why is because things like blight and things like powdery mildew, they're soil-borne funguses already, or soil-borne fungi, I should say. And because they are soil-borne, that means they started in the soil as it is, meaning you already had it in your garden. And so by adding it to your compost is really only going to, yes, add it to your compost, but it's only going to do the same thing that it already was doing in your garden. It's going to be there. It's going to be in the soil. And all plants will inevitably get it. Even if you threw out all of your diseased crops, chances are you probably would still get it. And I think that's the silver lining, is that I would much rather have compost, I'd rather have more compost, right? And reuse more of the stuff from my garden to feed my future plants than to throw it at the road and then have it end up in a landfill. So, that's the huge takeaway behind it all. Now, The final thing I will say is that there are certain circumstances where you don't want to compost things, like if you had, for instance, a pest outbreak, right? If you had a pest outbreak, it's a lot different than a soil-borne disease, right? If you had something like thrips, I wouldn't compost that. I would discard that. If you had something like scale, right? Scale is it's a hard-bodied bug that gets on some of your trees. If I had scale, I would discard that. I wouldn't add it back to my compost because that could spread to some of my other plants. It's a whole lot different than like a soil-borne fungus. Bonus tip, one of the 6 things that I've learned about making compost is that size matters, literally. So get your mind out of the gutter, folks. When it comes to the size of the compost, it really matters because the larger the particles you have, the longer it's going to take to break down. You'll notice that everything in our compost pile right here, they're all small. They're all small, right? So all these little chunks of leaves and wood chips and grass clippings, it's all chunked up, right? You don't see any big pieces. And that allows things like these worms to break them down much faster. It allows there to be more surface area, which helps the compost to break down. If you just throw it on whole, it will break down, but it's going to take a lot longer and it's a lot harder to manage and flip efficiently. So that's everything that I've learned from making my own compost. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's a super cold day today, so I'm freezing this one out for you guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. As always, grow bigger.